Now, most people don't realize that what a UFO actually is. First of all, it's a dumb word because they're not unidentified and they don't fly. They don't fly like a jet. So 2 of the 3 words that make up that acronym are incorrect. But they're basically an alternative energy and propulsion device. And once that began to be really documented by contractors in the U.S. government in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, they really were able to accelerate the research so that by 1954, they had figured out what's called gravity control, which the pop culture would call anti-gravity. It's not anti-gravity, actually, but it's gravity control, as well as what's called zero-point energy, which is pulling energy out of the space around us to run an engine or to run a motor or what have you. So these technologies were being studied very heavily by a team headed up by Dr. Vannevar Bush, who was head of the Manhattan Project. And by 1954, it was pretty well known, at least to science. The problem became to be, and this is what President Eisenhower warned us about, is that the secrecy became so enmeshed in compartmented intelligence operations that even he as president lost control over it. One of our military witnesses, he was a young man working at the White House, which I'm looking at here from my place here in Washington. He told us, Mr. Lovkin, who is an attorney, said Eisenhower was very frustrated that he was being denied information on the projects controlling this issue. So the secrecy went off the rails, let's call it, into these unacknowledged special access projects. And I got involved because, and this is something that when I started out, I was just doing investigation and going out and seeing, hey, can we make contact with these objects? Can we document them? And it turned out that once we did, I got pulled in and was asked to brief President Clinton's new CIA director. And from there, I began to realize that there were people who are inside government who know about these projects, and there are people inside government who do not know. And it has nothing to do with your rank. It doesn't matter if you're the president, and it doesn't matter if you're the CIA director. It really matters whether or not the bureaucracy feels like you're going to go along with the agenda of keeping this secret. And the secrecy is the hardest thing for people to understand. This was the first question the CIA director asked me. R. James Woolsey, who was Clinton's first CIA director, says, why would this be so secret? Why aren't they telling me and the president about this? And my wife and I were at this meeting. It was about a 3-hour meeting. And I said, because they don't believe that this president, Clinton at the time, this was in December of '93, would go along with the agenda. And if he disclosed this information, it would basically be the end of oil and gas and coal and public utilities, because we would have a technology that would completely transform our world. Now, I think that's a good thing. But if you own trillions of dollars in oil assets and coal and public utilities and stocks, you're probably not so enthralled. So I think that's one of the big issues of the secrecy was not based on normal national security concerns. It's not like there's some threat from outer space like all the stupid movies in Hollywood. It's really more about, if you let this information out and confirm it is legitimate, the very first thing any scientist with an IQ over mud is going to ask is, how are these things moving like that? How are they going 200,000 miles per hour and making a right-hand turn without stopping and without not decelerating? So you're talking about controlling gravity, you're controlling the fabric of space-time and an envelope around these objects, and it's all advanced electromagnetic systems. So once this began to be realized, they said, we really don't want this to come out, so let's just keep it secret. And 70 years later, here we are. So what our group is, the Disclosure Project, I founded after I basically gave up on the White House and Congress. And I thought, the people need to do this. So we had a couple dozen top secret guys in our team who came forward initially. Now I've probably interviewed maybe 800 or 900 people who've been in these various projects. So we've taken sort of the tip of that iceberg and put it in this movie, Unacknowledged, to give people a sense of what the information is, but also understanding how secrecy at this level is maintained. what the reasons for the secrecy are. Because it doesn't make any sense. Why would this be secret? Most people say, well, it'd be cool to know that there's intelligent life out there. And it is. But if along with that, you're going to have the most disruptive technology in history come out, that pretty much ExxonMobil, goodbye. So BP is gone. Your public utilities are unnecessary. So this begins to be a huge macroeconomic issue, and that's what the secrecy is partially rooted in. We have so much evidence that, what Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who is the astrophysicist in charge of Project Blue Book, said. I recently met his son. He said, we have an embarrassment of riches. So to give you an idea, we have over 4,000 cases where these objects have landed on the Earth and left physical evidence, and thousands of radar cases. Now, one of them is featured in the movie. The senior investigator for the FAA was called in 1986 when there was a Japan Airlines 747 going over the polar route. It was a cargo jet, actually. And it encountered one of these objects that was at least 3 or 4 times the size of a 747, moving in a nonlinear way. It would just move, it'd be in one position of the sky, one radar scope would be in another. He signaled to it, it signaled back. It was obviously under intelligent control. They scrambled jet fighters up. It was on military radar and civilian radar. All this data went to the F, and John Callahan was asked to do a briefing for the head of the FAA, 3 CIA folks, 3 FBI people, and 3 people from Ronald Reagan's science advisory team. When that meeting was over, the CIA said, this meeting never happened and this event never happened. We have so much data from this case, we don't want the public to have it, so they took it all. What they didn't realize is that the originals were still in Mr. Callahan's office, and when he retired, he left and gave them to us. We have that. So a lot of people will be skeptical and say, where's the evidence? Where's the physical? Where's this? Where's that? We have all that. The problem is nobody has studied the issue seriously, and what we're trying to do is put a snapshot together of the scope of this kind of evidence. Government documents, radar cases, photographs, video from whistleblowers. And the irony is, one of the things I mentioned recently in a news interview was the mainstream media brags about how, well, if we have a very controversial story, we need at least 3 corroborating points of information. The Disclosure Project has over 112 very credentialed, top secret people on video, hundreds of hours, who do not know each other. There's no collusion from different points in time corroborating the same events. Everything from recovering extraterrestrial vehicles and bodies that we've recovered in ones that have been downed using our electromagnetic weapon systems, to radar trackings, to the apparent ET concern about our nuclear weapons, where Colonel Diedrichson, who we have an extensive interview with him, he was responsible for all nuclear facilities in the United States. He said every single one of our nuclear facilities had been penetrated because they were apparently very concerned that we could do something that could destroy life on this planet, and with us going into space, maybe we would at some point be an existential threat to others. So this is a very big issue, and we have credentialed people who were in the right places, who have first-hand knowledge, not second-hand accounts, along with the government documents that corroborate it. So I tell people, what do you want? Someone said, well, I want a physical ET body. That's shown in the film also. Apparently it is. It's certainly not human. And so it seems to be hypocrisy of the mainstream media is that no matter how much evidence you put forward, because of the brainwashing of, oh, this can't be true, and this is all the stuff of the National Enquirer and tabloids, the attitude is, well, let's not even look at the evidence, my mind is already made up. So what we tried to do with Unacknowledged is in one scene after another, put in the testimony, the evidence, the data points, and then people can go do their own research. Don't take my word for it. I want people to be skeptical, since if you Google this subject, I would say more than 95% of everything on the internet on this subject is utter rubbish, complete rubbish. But the part of it that's real is mind-boggling, beautiful.